Presenters of our main talk today come from within our Oasis community. Rodolfo Rivas is from Houston, Texas. He is number 6 of 10 children. His parents are from El Salvador. He has worked in a shelter for immigrant children for the past 6 years. He is an avid gamer and a level 10 prestige on Call of Duty.
What?
Okay. I'm from the whiteout days. I don't get it. Perla Rivas is from, I should say Perla, I should say it right, is from the El Paso Juarez border, the middle sister of 3. Her parents are from Mexico. She went to college at the University of Texas at Arlington and majored in political science, and she currently works as a research coordinator at the Shriners Hospital for Children in Galveston, right? Great. And they recently got married. Yeah, so okay. So this might be we've had husband and wives do like community moment main talk. This might be the first time we've had a married couple do like a talk together. So let's welcome Rodolfo and Perla.
Hello, everybody. Hola. Mucho gusto. Hola. Atheism is not only for gringos. Or the title of the PowerPoint that I'm going to be doing is Latinos and their shift to free thought from religion. No, we're good. Yeah, you go ahead. The history on Latinos came to be this very bloody and pretty horrible thing that happened a long time ago. And it's repeated many times around the world. In 1493, just 1 year after Christopher Columbus' famous voyage, Pope Alexander VI published a bill dividing the new territory between Spain and Portugal. This was a very rich, fertile land, a lot of people, a lot of resources and gold. And they were pretty much forced into Catholicism. Hernán Cortés was told that the first aim of your expeditions was to serve God and to spread the Catholic faith throughout the land. Indigenous people were very considered savage to them, but they really weren't. They had their own infrastructure of cities, canals, aqueducts. They had a very rich society, and their cities were about 3 to 6 times larger than any European city at that time. On the side here, you can see a lot of Aztec gods. What actually happened was a war and pretty bloody thing. The conquistadors. That right here is the Pope at that time, Alexander VI. And it wasn't just the Catholics that came there too, though. It was a lot of different cultures. San Franciscans, Moors, I believe some other people. Can't remember who it was. Dominicans as well. It was a lot of people that were coming here and explaining new religions and, I guess, indoctrinating new people into the land of religion. All right, next slide.
I was going to mention this in the beginning, but I just wanted to say bienvenidos y muchas gracias por acompañarnos en la plática. La mayoría va a ser en inglés, pero si tienen preguntas pueden hacerlas en el final en español o en el lenguaje que deseen. Okay, this part here kind of shows the different religious affiliations currently in different Latin American countries. So for example here, way there on your left, 81% of Mexico is still Catholic. Lower numbers here in Brazil, about 61%. And then if you see Honduras and Uruguay, they're about less than 50% Catholic at the moment. So they're becoming a little bit more atheist and free-thinking. Then as well, here we can see that predominantly in 2013, people that are Hispanic, 55% of them are still Catholic, but they're really moving to becoming Protestant and evangelicals. And the rest of them do become a little bit free-thinking. But currently it's still about 3 of the main religions, Catholic, evangelicals, Protestant, and then people who do Santeria or indigenous type of religions.
Even though we're still very religious, Latinos are slowly leaving religion. Just like here in the North, the more you're educated and the more you learn about your religion, the less you're likely to believe in it. Very true. As you can see in the map, many countries are decreasing in belief and moving towards free thought. What does it say there? The majority Latinos leaving are around 11 to 19%. Some of them are undecisive about it. Some of them are still atheist. Humanist, very few of them are converting, but we're starting to change the more educated we become. And that's always the youngest people, the people who go to college, the people who start reading and learning more about different cultures, that travel, normally between 18 and 29. And the internet helps out a lot in that. They have access to all sorts of information, and they learn about all different types of life in the world, and that helps a lot in learning to leave religion. There is also a very big difference between US-born Latinos and anybody south of the border. People born here that are Latinos tend to be more free-thinking. There's less religion involved, and we're more progressive towards topics like same-sex marriage, abortion, women's rights. And the opposite can be said about south of the border. They still hold a lot of religion and non-progressive views south of the border. They still grip onto things that they don't want to really let go, to beliefs that they've had for hundreds of years.
Like on these charts that we're showing here, you can see people that have no change when they come here from a different country is about still 68%, but people who do come from a different country, they change at a rate of 30% from their original belief. So it is a drastic change, not only in identity, but also religious views when they change to a different country. Okay, so some of the issues that Latinos have when transitioning is similar to everyone else in the community today. So it is a loss of community. It has also a huge loss of identity. But it's also a bit different because you add the language to it. So, sometimes when you know a different language, that's kind of your maternal tongue. And so you feel a little bit more, like a little closer to someone when they speak to you in the language that, your parents brought you up with. And so losing that community kind of loses that language as well sometimes. And then different types of events that you have growing up as Hispanic or Latino are like Dia de los Muertos, where they celebrate the Day of the Dead and they commemorate, they kind of commemorate people that have passed, baptisms, marriages, quinceañeras. The whole concept of a quinceañera is to celebrate kind of your resemblance to the Virgin Mary, that you're now 15, so you're able to have a child and all these other things. And then it also comes with a lot of shame and guilt. That's like the main thing, at least for me, of being Catholic, that you carry that like so long and you try to let go of it, but it's always coming back to you, whether your mom calls you or your aunt calls you, and why are you doing that? You're not part of the family. This is what you should be doing. You're hurting us, yeah. So on the right-hand side, on your left-hand side, you can see different reasons why people leave, and some of them are because they just stop going to church. They don't kind of believe in the things that people preach anymore, and a lot of it has to do with an identity loss. So that's a major transition issue for people.
Another thing too is that once you leave the community, a lot of times it feels like banishment or exile. You're no longer invited to these type of family or social events or community moments. You lose that huge community and support system that you have with them. And it's really hard to find that type of community when you don't speak another language, and the majority of them don't. It's very hard to find a community when you can't communicate. Even though they're very progressive, we do, Latinos think very progressively. Not progressive. The majority of them don't all think that abortion is bad. About a little bit less than 50% believe in same-sex marriage or abortion. As you can see on these charts here, kind of can't see, kind of blurry. A lot of them believe that the Catholic Church isn't all-knowing and all-powerful. It doesn't have the grasp that they used to have. obviously. They've changed a lot, and we are changing with it.
Let me mention back there too, some of the things that people still believe that even aren't Catholic are, for example, allowing women to be priests. That's one of the things that people kind of want in religion now. Also in the back here, Catholics who believe in divorce, about 70% of them still kind of think that you don't have to stay with the same person if things don't always turn out the way that they want it to. And then different things about like priests getting married. 59% of them want priests to be able to have a different partner and be able to still practice their faith. So things are changing, and they really haven't always been as stringent. And you usually see a group of people who are maybe very conservative in religion, but tend to vote Democrat most of the time. That's usually where Latinos lie.
What about contraception?
Contraception is still a very debated issue within our community. I don't think it is as accepted as it should be, but it is getting better. I know that some people preach that you should be able to use it, different methods, not only the counting method that they use, of measuring temperature and things like that. So I think it's getting a little bit better, but it's not. It's really not where it should be.
So they're not that different from us, which is very good because that means they could come over. Almost to the dark side. Not that far away. The last page is references, and I think we're done with that. We wanted to finish by telling our own personal stories and how we came to religion or leaving religion. Mine's a little bit easier than my wife's. Yeah. As a kid, I gained a great love for reading. It's great. Everybody should do it. From fiction books to scientific books. One of the world's best-selling fiction books that I read was the Bible, though. It was what made me start doubting and shift towards free thinking. I also had a great science teacher in elementary that would answer all of my questions regarding science and biology. This and the fact that everyone in my family thought it was a joke or just a phase let me have an easy life as a young atheist. I didn't experience many of the troubles that atheists do now. The seclusion, the loss of community. My family still bothers me and prays for me all the time. They want to save me still. I'm not gone. The fact that they were used to me meant that I had an easy atheist life as a kid. I started out as a 10-year-old atheist. So it's been almost 18 years now. And now I'm doing this talk. Yeah.
Yeah, mine is much different than that. And it has to do a lot with me living in Mexico for the majority of my life and being brought up there. So my shift to free thought began the day my father was deported and we moved to Mexico. So it was the first time I was ever forced to learn and see different lifestyles and appreciate different experiences. We were forced to depend on the church for community and support since our family and friends had abandoned us. I grew up in a country that struggled with the drug war and rampant killings of working women, so it was easy to fall in tradition and believe that God had placed me in this situation for a reason. And I grew up in the border, so Juarez, if no one else knows about it, it's that really dangerous town, and everyone dies there. And
just watch the movie Sicario.
Yeah, it really is what Sicario portrayed is really how it was at that time. So I decided to leave for college and study abroad in the Czech Republic, and I lived with 600 engineers with all different walks of life. They questioned my faith, my suffering, and the necessity of it. So I learned from them slowly and began to shift my beliefs and stringent Catholicism. So when I returned from studying abroad, I moved out of my house and went to college, to finish college at the University of Texas at Arlington. And I took several classes in feminist theory, Black and Hispanic history, and a law and literature class. And those really opened my eyes to oppression and guilt that the church lives by, and I decided that I would no longer take part of it. So I also started therapy due to feeling a loss in identity, not only because of no longer living in a violent city, but also because God would no longer be at the center of it, but rather me. I finished college and I moved to Galveston with my sister who was in med school, and I also started working at Shrine. And then I began searching for secular organizations, but didn't have much luck. So when Rodolfo and I started online dating, one of the things that we discussed was being secular and the lack of Latinos in the same situation. So he introduced me to Oasis, and The guy who was singing today was actually the same guy who sang the first time that we came here, so that was really sweet. Yeah. So where was I here? Okay, so he introduced me to Oasis, and he allowed me the space to be who I truly was, an atheist Mexican American. So my family has been pretty distant towards me leaving our faith, and also to my more liberal views on marriage, virginity, and feminism. It has not been an easy path with them, but our relationship is broken and kind of rebuilding, and it's really setting new boundaries with them. My marriage with Rodolfo and the support of our community, including Oasis, has strengthened my identity and helped me shape a future.
Aww.
So we wanted to share a little bit of our personal experiences and open up.
Yeah, let me pass the mic around for, and then you guys can work up that mic. Is that okay? And yeah, and I have a lot of questions too. I think the moral of the story, once again, is book learning is a dangerous thing. Here, go ahead.
Quick question, how would Oasis reach out to people who are primarily Spanish speaking? And what can we do to enable them in our community?
This helps a lot, but we need, I guess the Hispanic people in Oasis need to step up and take charge, the initiative, and start inviting people who are Hispanic and speak mostly Spanish only, invite them. Maybe someday we'll have our own Spanish version of it.
Yeah, we could. I mean, especially when we get, and I can share that we're in negotiations, right? We're currently in negotiations on a possible 7-day-a-week, our own leased facility, which would enable us. I know that Richard Andrews is talking. Where is Richard still here?
Yeah.
Yeah, is that still a possibility? The ESL kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Richard's talked about doing ESL classes. Spanish-speaking members of the Oasis community could certainly start Spanish social events. Like we have midweek dinner, have a Spanish brunch or whatever.
Taco Tuesdays.
Taco Tuesdays. All right, Bradley.
Do you think that Papa Francisco has been a help or a hindrance towards
He
liberalization?
did apologize to the native peoples of those countries, the only popes who have done that, for the crimes that the Catholic Church does commit against my people, I guess. It helps. It's the first step.
I think it's really interesting because he is the first pope from Latin America. So that does bridge a lot of people who felt a bit distant from someone who's like from Rome or Italy. So I think it helps in that regard that he's being more open and more accepting and more loving and humble still to a different set of people. But I honestly still think he still promotes pretty much everything the Catholic Church does. So he's mentioned things about not accepting people who are same-sex marriages. So I don't think it's that far from what the church still believes in.
Perhaps it would be better to have a pope that nobody likes and
Right, and
very
completely.
fall apart.
It's really hard to hate this pope.
So, Ashley, you have a question? Oh, wait, I'm going to take the mic back to you both. I'm going to jump in because before you ask your question. You know, I have a lot of friends who are secular Jews. You know, they like their Jewish identity. It's an important part of who they are, but they're not theistic. Do you see? I loved David Levy's line last week that every Jewish holiday boils down to they tried to kill us, they didn't, let's drink. So I used that line several times this week and it gets laughs. But do you see, like for free thinkers, I mean, could you see continuing to go on with things like quinceañeras, but just not without reference to the Virgin Mary? Like, things that you appreciate about your culture that may have had roots in religion that you still like to carry on. Are there things like that for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, it's not like I stopped going to quinceañeras because I stopped believing. I still went to party and have fun with friends, but it does kind of take away a big part of it because you're not you're not in agreement to half of what they're saying, and so everyone knows that, and it's kind of like the elephant in the room that here's the non-believer sitting at the end of the corner, but they still want to party with you. So it does make it a little bit more awkward, but you can still, I mean, I think every Latino has a different experience. And when I say Latino, we're not only referring to people of Mexican descent, we're talking about people from Honduras and Paraguay and El Salvador and Brazil, and so there's a whole bunch of different experiences embedded there.
I'm too Americanized.
Real quickly, what would you say is the main drive for leaving Catholicism and entering into evangelical beliefs? Because I find that kind of a scary thing, because it's like you're going into what you may see extremist politicians who are against immigration and have all these policies, and they claim to be evangelicals. So how does that really factor into them changing their
I don't
views?
think we could answer that because we haven't switched from, well, she switched from Catholicism to atheism, but I've never really been Baptist or Protestant.
I kind of have a theory on that. Not that I have personally experienced it, but when you are of Hispanic descent and you enter into an evangelical or a Protestant church, it tends to come with a lot of social aid. So, for example, if you're a person that doesn't have health care and you enter this type of group, some of these groups already have a set plan for people to enter into community with social care, with being able to take you and get you to a place to vote, maybe get you to a healthcare worker. So they provide all of these things for you with having you also go to their church. So it's kind of a give and take, not only that you are maybe more extremist in your beliefs, but you also get a whole bunch of different social aids that you wouldn't get within the church.
We have one over here, CB.
Right. I have a question. I grew up in the Rio Grande Valley, right on the border, in the borderlands, and I'm curious, do you consider yourself Hispanic, because you're referring to Hispanic of European extraction or indigenous?
That's a really good question. And that is a huge part of people categorizing themselves as what type of Hispanic you are. So when I was younger and people would refer to people as Mexican, we would say only those who speak Spanish are Mexican. And if you really take, care of who you are and your identity, then that's how you identify as Mexican. But when I left that area, I kind of didn't feel that was the same, because everyone does have such a specific experience. So in my case, I consider myself more indigenous. Not only do I feel like I look more indigenous than most people do, but I feel like I'm more in tune with that side of history of who I am. But I can't deny that I am partially of Spanish descent and also a lot of black descent. There were a lot of slaves who were still brought to Mexico and different countries of Latin America. So we are a mixture of those three cultures.
Good. Oh, go ahead. You have something to add to that?
I look white.
This is
I do.
I'll stay over here. This has been fantastic. We just really appreciate you guys taking the time to put together this magnificent presentation. And I hope it's the beginning of something new for us in terms of reaching out to free thinkers who speak Spanish in our area, because we would love to have them be a part of what we're doing as well. So let's give a big thank you to Rodolfo.